Welcome to Pack West Bassin. I'm Shane. Ever got tired of throwing a Ned rig or dragging in 60 feet for smallmouth in the middle of winter? There is another way to trigger a reaction bite in winter that most people overlook. You are watching my educational and informational channel about bass fishing and all topics related to bass fishing. Click that subscribe button and bell icon to get notifications when I upload a new video. Have you ever wanted to just go out and throw one of these, throw reaction bites in the middle of winter, but everyone in the world's telling you, no, you're not going to get bit? They're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. Maybe not this exact bait, and that's a different story. So, many misconceptions out there about fish behavior in the winter, especially the differences between largemouth and smallmouth bass. Largemouth, the big misconception is they're always not going to chase, they're lethargic, they're stuck on the bottom, they're not going to move. You literally have to bounce something off of them to get them to hit. Completely not true. That may be a little more true if you get into a soft bottom situation. Real muddy lakes, that might be the case, but not generally if you're looking at a clearer to stained water with some rocky bottom. You can get them to chase any time of the year. Winter especially. Now smallmouth, the tendency is people think, oh, they're too deep. They're 40 plus, they're 30 plus, they're 60 plus. Some lakes, there always will be fish that are that deep. But not every fish stays that deep for the entire length of winter. Many fish are cycling. They'll go up, they'll go down. And you get a cold snap that comes through, yeah, they might migrate further deep. You get some warm sunny days, there's going to be ones that come up. There's always a fish feeding at some point in time. It's basically about getting your bait in front of them when they're ready to bite. The hardest part is finding this exact time frame, and that does not differentiate whether it's largemouth or smallmouth. With smallmouth, they're going to really relate to rock, especially when they come up early in the day if there's sun. Generally, they come up about noon to 2, depending on the sunshine. If you have a foggy morning, it's going to be later. That's just my experience. Every lake is going to be completely different, and fish behavior is going to change even regionally. Now that we have that out of the way, depths. That's a big issue. Depth. What bait, what crankbait can you get to a certain depth and still fit the profile to get that reaction bite for that day? Now, depth kind of plays into a factor of your bait's lip design. Now, there are many different lip designs out there, and I'm going to tell you the ones to stay away from. Like in the intro of this video, this is a 10XD. I'm mainly using this just because it's larger and I can really show you the differences on the bait. If you look at it from the top, you'll see it's like throwing a dinner plate connected to your bait. That's a big, wide lip. You don't want that style of lip. You want a bait with a thinner profile to create a tighter wobble. Yes, you're going to get more depth out of a bait like a 10XD, 8XD, something even older like a man's loudmouth from the mid 90s. Yes, I'm that old. But the way the bait moves, the flat, wide lips are not going to be the action you're looking for. You want something that has a tight action, almost mimicking a rattle trap or lipless bait in a sense. You want something that looks similar to that. Now, there is an exception to that rule. The one exception I have found is the Berkley Dredger. It has the flat lip just like the 8XD, the 10XD, but it's not as pronounced. It's a little bit smaller. This is I believe a 17.5, and that lip actually does okay. There is a trick. You can actually file the sides down a little bit to tighten the action. But you didn't hear that from me. So, rods. We'll go into rods first. So I personally will throw a lot of my lighter cranks on a Daiwa 8-foot Brett Ayler medium heavy cranking rod. That's just my personal preference. The smaller bait you go, you might want to decrease the length of the rod. But a lot of people will go down to like a medium in the winter for a crankbait rod. For me, it's about feel. I want to feel that bait going ding, 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 ding across the bottom. That way I know I have bottom contact. So I like something with a moderate to fast tip, so I can really sense what that bait is doing down there. The Daiwa Ailer crankin rod is awesome. That's mainly what I throw this bait on. This is a Norman Deep Little N. You can use smaller rods like a 7-foot or even a 6-8 if you're throwing a smaller bait. If you're able to throw up into shallower water, a 7.6 will do just fine. Some people with larger crankbaits will even throw it on a swim bait rod, but it all depends on what fish are in your lake and what what you're targeting, whether it's largemouth or smallmouth. Line's a big deal. Line will determine how far that bait can get down and how far you can cast that bait. Personally, in winter, 10-pound test is all I throw. I'm not going to throw 12, 14, 16. Unless I'm down in Mexico, which that will happen soon. I won't throw anything over 10-pound test in winter. These fish are not really line shy, but that 10-pound test gets that bait with that smaller profile on it down just a little bit further, and that can be a big difference. Another thing with light line cranking with 10-pound test is check your line for frays, especially if you're going through rocks constantly. Last thing you want to do is be out there all day long throwing a crankbait at rock piles and get a one little nick in that line, and that single fish that it took you all day to catch all of a sudden snaps off on the hook set. Been there, done that. You don't want to go there. So, reels. This is going to be completely contrary to what everyone else uses. I like a 7-to-1 minimum reel. I want to be able to cook that bait through. I don't want that fish getting a second look at that bait to decide whether it's not going to hit it. I want it to be a pure reaction, grab it now. I want a 7-to-1, 7.5, 8-to-1. Heck, I'd even go with a 9-to-1. There's a few out there that can go 9-to-1. I believe there's even a 10-to-1. But anyway, back on subject. The combination of the light line and a high-speed reel with the right rod, you can pretty much throw every bait on the same setup. In winter, they're not going to fight as well as they do in spring or fall or midsummer. So you're not having to worry about a fish really bulldogging you into a steel post or the poles underneath a dock or something like that. Docks are generally something I'm not going to fish reaction for in the middle of winter anyway. It's going to be more offshore, away from that kind of stuff. Will there be fish on the docks? Yes, there will be. It's just nothing I really target. So baits. This is a big, broad spectrum, and I'm just going to break it down slowly here. Okay. Baits to avoid. 10XD. Great bait. As you can see, this bait got beat up in Mexico at Lake Picachos for me. 100 fish day on this thing. Don't expect a 100 fish day in the middle of winter up here in the Pacific Northwest. Another one, 8XD. Mainly just put the larger XDs to show the lip and what not to use. That teardrop, I guess it fits upside down, it looks more like a teardrop, is too wide of a wobble. On the deeper end of the spectrum, and I actually rarely throw this one, is going to be your Norman DD22. It has that thin long lip, but it does have a smidge of a wide wobble for it being a flat lip. So I don't throw this very often, and it also runs deeper than the areas that I'm going to be targeting, which I will go into here shortly. The Dredger, I already brought the Dredger up, and you can trim the sides of the lip a little bit, not too much, because you will foul with the way it runs, but it actually has a decently tight wobble for how deep it goes. Your Norman Deep Little N. This is my bread and butter. This is my favorite crankbait of all time for smallmouth. Anyone that knows me knows I will always have a rod with this tied on in my rod locker at any lake, at any point in time, at any season. This bait does have a tight wobble, but it kind of has a little wide wobble in the back end. But this is an excellent winter crankbait. It does have the thin lip, and it has a small enough thinner profile from looking straight down on it, like I'm holding it to the camera there, that it doesn't deviate from the pattern that seems to work in winter. And believe it or not, the old school Shad Rap. This is a small one I actually got out of Kaylin's tackle box. The Shad Rap has a super tight wobble to it. It doesn't dive very deep, so that's where its limitations come into play. The best crankbait that I've found that seems to work excellent in winter, and this is new on the market, I believe a year ago, maybe 2 years at the most, and this is the one put out by the guys at Tactical Bassin. This bait fits every single profile. It's got the long bill, the tight wobble, it dives pretty deep, and it just flat out catches fish in winter. They put a lot of time in every little detail on this bait, from the colors to the lip to the eyes on how reflective they are. Excellent bait. This is probably my #1 crankbait in winter, along with the Norman Deep Little End. You have one of these two on, you are pretty much going to catch some fish. Granted, I can't guarantee it, but if I had to bet on it, I would. Now, where to throw them? That is the big question, is where. We have the what, the why, now we need the where. So I purposely will look for 10 to 12 foot zone with a rocky bottom, anywhere near access to super deep water. And when I say super deep water, I want something that drops off into 30, 35, 40 plus. These fish will be cruising along that line where the rocks come up. When that comes up is where they're going to come up for a little while during the day or during warm times, and then come back down. It almost creates a super highway for these fish, for looking for prey. Now, they can find everything in that zone. They don't have to go long distances along a flat to try to find it. If there is a flat that has individual rocky outcroppings on it, that's another area and a whole different story. Those individual spots will hold fish. Now, riprap and rocky outcroppings like that will hold fish depending on the size of it. The larger it is, the better. Individual rocks, for me, not so much for fish that'll be active for a crankbait in winter. The more I find are the fish that are traveling in what I call a mini school. 3 to 4 fish, or anything under 10 fish. And those are the ones that are mainly going to go after this. You can get the individual fish, but the main ones that are going to go are the ones that are competing with another fish for the bait in that area. Bluffs. Bluffs are extremely overlooked depending on the depth of them. What I will try to do is try to run the crankbait into the side of the bluff. Now, bluff fishing, you're mainly looking for suspended fish, because these bluffs can go 20, 30, 40, 50 feet down. And so you're looking for suspended fish along the sides. If you've ever been to Bass Pro Shops and seen the big fish tank or even Cabela's, how many fish do you see in the upper half of the water column just stuck like they're glued to the rock wall? Those are the fish you are targeting. All you got to do is take that little eyelet, bend it to the side just a smidge. That will cause your bait to wonky off to the left or right, depending on what side of you the bluff is on. Don't have it pinched over too far to the point where it really diminishes the action of the bait, but just enough to where it runs just a few degrees off to the left. That way, as that bait is coming down, it's constantly banging into the rock. And that's what you want. That's what's going to cause that reaction bite for them to come and just nail it. Now, if you're on an extremely shallow bite, you might find these fish up in 5 to 10 feet. If you're on a real sunny day, or even it's been on a warming trend. Individual rock piles. And I'm talking about an individual rock pile like the size of the front of your boat. You can find bigger ones, but small ones like that seem to hold 2 to 3 fish sometimes. It all depends. Each lake is going to be different. But you can usually grab one off of them if the timing's right. The shallow water crankbait bite in winter is going to be very, very limited. And it's going to be limited to a lot of the air pressure issues, weather fronts, and sunshine. sunshine and the weather front will play the biggest part in that. Mainly, I will still concentrate on anywhere from 10 to 12 because at that depth is where this bait will hit the bottom and react the way you want it to the most to trigger strikes. And that 10 to 12 foot mark is also the range right in the middle of where these fish are moving up and down throughout the day. So eventually you're going to run into one and hopefully it's willing to play. So going over baits. Now I went over a few of them in here. Like my favorite wintertime one is going to be the River2Sea Tactical DD 75. That's this one right here. Excellent bait. The Norman Deep Little N. That's that one there. That's an excellent one. The Spro RK Crawler is another good one. I've never personally thrown it, but that's what a lot of people say. 6 cents. The Curve 55. That one works pretty well. The Bomber Deep Flat. And the Rapala Shad Rap. And if you're going on the deeper end of the spectrum, you got the Berkley Dredger, the Norman DD22, and the Megabass Big M 7.5. That's pretty much the limit on what crankbaits I will throw. If I didn't list it in that, I'm probably not throwing it in winter. That doesn't mean it's not going to catch fish. It just doesn't mean it's just not in my arsenal at this point in time. Never know. Something can always change my mind. Now, colors. Keep it simple. Subtle and normal. Natural. Nothing that's going to, you don't want to throw like a parrot color or a chartreuse blue back like this one here. You want something that mimics natural baitfish, minnows, or craws. Those three. That's it. I don't throw anything outside that spectrum in winter. You want it to look as natural as possible. You're just not going to get that reaction bite in clear to stained water on something that's bright summery pattern. Save those for the summer. Now when? Generally, in my area of the woods, late October through the pre-spawn, depending on when that is going to be the time when you can do this. November, just past turnover, I don't do so well. That's when these fish really get lockjawed and you're not going to get as many hits. So I can kind of edit that to like December through pre-spawn, so through like March in Washington where I'm at. There's also many other patterns that can overlap into these areas as well, but this specific way of doing it is limited to that time frame in my opinion. Now, how to work it. The pattern for this is you need to make them hit your bait. There are many people who will tell you, whip it out there as far as you can, and then just a slow, dead crank. Like you're walking a large swim bait, like a HUD, to the point where it's the most boring retrieve in the world. That's not what you do. You can catch fish, but in my opinion, that's just way too boring, and you didn't put it on a crankbait to fish it like a HUD. Whip that thing out as far as you can, and I will use an erratic retrieve. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop. 1, 2, 3, stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, stop. And you want to reel this fast. They will hit this on the stop. Experiment with your length of your pauses. You may find that a length of pause of 2 seconds one day may get the hits, a length of 3 seconds may get it the next day, or half a second. But the pause length is going to be very determinate on whether you get hit or not. Just make it as erratic as possible. Don't slow down. Whatever you do not slow down your cranking. That is exactly why you want that 7-to-1 plus gear ratio on the reel. Though if the fish gets a great look at this bait, they're probably not going to hit it, and that's why the erratic and fast nature of this plays into your catch ratio. I hope this has been a good video, and I hope you all can get out there and catch some fish. Let me know what baits work for you guys in the winter in the comments down below.